Don't talk to me or my son ever again.
Hi, welcome to Squid Think. Today, we're discussing a pretty misunderstood set of creatures. They're scaly, they're spooky, they're spiky, they are the sharks. Being a biologist and whatnot, people probably know that I'm a bit of a fan of just animals in general and in nature and stuff. See, nature. But am I actually a fan of sharks themselves? Alright. Unfortunately, over the years, especially since the release of Jaws, they've been a bit of a victim of the media. But in recent years, we've actually seen the public perception of sharks start to shift because people have been doing much more research on them and they're much more understood than they once were. With people like the Nawake Project and the work of the Bimini Shark Lab in the Bahamas, people are actually starting to think that sharks are pretty fucking rad. I'll leave links to these organizations in the description box below if you want to check them out. Sharks are not only really important parts of the ecosystem, but they're also just natural badasses. Nothing about sharks even follows the rules of normal fish. Normal scales? F you, mine are made of teeth. One little pissy little gill slit? Try 7. Oh, you like mineralized endoskeletons? Bitch, cartilage. There's an estimated 440 known species of sharks, and not a single one of them is not made of complete badass. Apart from maybe the wobbegong, because he's just a frilly floppy carpet fish. They've literally been around for 400 million years. That's 200 million years before the goddamn dinosaurs. They're apex predators in their ecosystems, which means that they are a keystone species for the ecosystem. A keystone species is basically a species that supports a lot more species around it. So basically, if a keystone species gets wiped out, the rest fall like dominoes. Despite the public perception of sharks shifting, you still see a lot of things like during Shark Week on National Geographic, or even on YouTube as well. There's a lot of videos titled with things like, most terrifying sharks, or top 10 sharks that will eat your face and spit roast it and then fuck your wife. So today, we're gonna be talking about the 5 best sharks. This was really difficult because obviously all sharks are the best, but these 5 particularly caught my attention. We're going to be going through 5 categories. We're going to be doing the fastest, the strongest, the cutest, the creepiest, and the overall coolest. So without further ado, let's talk about some good boys. Shark number 1, the Shortfin Mako shark. This shark is the fastest shark in the ocean, and it can reach speeds of up to 96 kilometers an hour, which is roughly about 60 miles per hour, which is the national speed limit here in the UK. So the fastest that you're legally allowed to go in your car, Shortfin Mako shark does that shit in the water. The second fastest is behind it by about 16 kilometers an hour, and that's the salmon shark. And that can reach speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour. And in third place behind the salmon shark is the great white shark, which can actually reach speeds of up to 60 kilometers an hour. Out of this list though, if you ask me, the salmon shark is probably the most impressive because the salmon shark is actually native to the northern Pacific Ocean. The waters are much cooler there, and when the waters are much cooler, you get speed restrictions because you have limited blood flow to the extremities. There's a common misconception about sharks that they always have to keep swimming because otherwise they suffocate. This actually isn't true because they have a secondary method of breathing called buccal pumping. I say breathing, I mean, pushing water over their gills so that they can diffuse oxygen into their blood. Buccal pumping, or force pumping, is used by a lot of bony or teleost fish species, as opposed to ram ventilation, which is just where they swim with their mouths open, which is where you see a lot of sharks just kind of going, because this allows the water to flow over their gills. But so this myth about sharks only having to swim with their mouth open because otherwise they'll suffocate has somewhat of a truth to it because that is the primary method by which sharks ventilate their gills. But there's actually only a few species of shark which cannot buccal pump whatsoever, and the salmon shark, the white shark, and the Shortfin Mako shark, and Mako sharks in general, are actually 3 of them. But out of 440 species, only about a couple dozen of them can't do this. Here's some facts about the Shortfin Mako shark. Some of them have actually been known to travel just over 2,000 kilometers in less than a month. They have a stupidly long gestation period in comparison to humans. They can be pregnant for up to 18 months. When they are pregnant, their pups actually sometimes engage in intrauterine cannibalism, where the pups will eat the lesser developed pups, and they'll use them for nutrients and they'll outcompete them. This is also sometimes referred to as overphagy if it's in very, very early stages. The Shortfin Mako is categorized by the IUCN as endangered. A few years ago, the National Marine Fisheries Service actually ordered that 50% less Shortfin Mako sharks should be caught in fisheries to try and just up their population numbers a bit. But to be honest, with a lot of these directives or policies where they say, oh, we need 50% of this, or make sure that 17% of the world's oceans is protected, a lot of the time it's either just a really convenient number, and it has no science behind it, or it's just a number that they think is reachable. On to shark number 2 for the category of the strongest shark. Now, because they don't exactly have boxing matches for sharks on a regular basis, I went with bite as a measurable thing for this category. And if we're going on bite, then the winner's going to be the bull shark. The bull shark has a bite pressure of up to 1,300 psi, or up to 6,000 newtons. To give you an idea of comparison, a human bite is about 900 to 1,300 newtons. This is stronger than a hyena, which has a bite of 1,000 psi, or even a grizzly bear, which has a bite of 1,160 psi. However, when you compare it to things like the saltwater crocodile, for example, which has a bite of roughly up to 7,700 psi, or even an orca or a killer whale, which has a bite of up to 19,000 psi, it's a little bit more. Bull sharks don't seem that powerful. I mean, you know, still don't stick your hand in there, but come on, bull shark. Up your game. Bull sharks have a unique ability to be able to survive in brackish, salt, or fresh water. The only other sharks that we know that can do this are the glyphis or the river sharks, such as the northern river shark. This has led to a few problems just in regards to sharing a habitat with humans, because obviously a lot of people river fish or work in rivers, and sometimes they come across a bull shark. And that's not great. There's a golf club in Australia called the Carbrook Golf Club, and they actually had an invasion of bull sharks in the waterways, which were dragged there from a storm.
The sharks are thriving in a well-stocked lake, even breeding. A couple are close to 10 foot long. They're sometimes given the odd treat. One even had a nibble at our camera.
They have this ability thanks to their kidneys, which basically retain salt whenever they go into a freshwater environment. It's really important to keep the salinity levels of the internal environment pretty similar, because salinity affects the water potential of the fluid outside of cells. If you have too much salt outside of cells, then the water is going to be dragged out through osmosis. And if you don't have any water in your cells, that's going to be a bad time. Bonus fun fact, while we're on the topics of shark organs, is that sharks actually have really, really fatty livers because they lack a swim bladder. So in order to maintain neutral buoyancy, they have massive fat deposits in their livers. Another myth that I found out about actually while doing the research for this video, there was a myth going around that bull sharks have the highest testosterone count of any animal. This is completely untrue. This myth was actually started by a character in GTA who said that he injected bull shark testosterone to keep his testosterone levels up. There's been a couple studies done on this, and they found that they have pretty much exactly the same levels of testosterone as any other fish. On to category number 3, which is the award for the cutest shark. And this one so easily goes to the thresher shark. The thresher shark, alongside the whale shark, is actually my favorite shark because, oh my god, they're so cute. There's 3 types of thresher shark. There's the common, there's the pelagic, and then there's the big eye. There's only ever been one documented attack by a thresher shark on a human, and that was just because there was this dude who was just like pulling on the thresher shark's tail because they have really big tails. And he just thought it was so funny, so the thresher shark just turned around and bit him. Thresher sharks have smaller jaws than a lot of other sharks because you're so tiny and I just want to squeeze their little faces. Sorry. They tend to feed on schooling fish, like mackerel, but they also venture out into other foods like cephalopods, like squid. So they may be cute, but they're evil. Also, while we're on the topic of them being like, you know, cute and stuff, but having a secret dark side, they can weigh up to 600 kilograms as well, so that's over half a ton. Not only that, but they use their long ass tail, they use it as a whip. And not just like, you know, you and your boyfriend are trying out some new stuff kind of whip. Like a dominatrix with a vendetta for tuna. They whip their tails so hard onto their prey that their prey disintegrates and they just eat the scraps. And a quick other little cute thing about threshers is that they're actually one of only 5 sharks to be endothermic. And so they can shiver when they get cold. Get a little chilly, they just shiver. God, they're just so cute! It is now time for category number 4, which is the scariest ones. Or the creepiest, I can't remember what I said. This is the only category where I literally could not decide who should win. So this is going to be a joint win between the Goblin Shark and the Frilled Shark. They're both absolutely terrifying in their own ways. If I was in a dark alleyway, and I turned around and I saw either of them staring at me, I think it is safe to say that I would shit myself. Then again, I'm lactose intolerant, so it's pretty much safe to say I'll shit myself at any given moment. The Goblin Shark is a member of the Mitsukurinidae family of sharks, of which the Goblin Shark is actually the only surviving genus. There have been 5 other genera found in the fossil record though. Due to the fact that the Goblin Shark has such a horrifying jaw that can be moved forwards and backwards whenever the hell it wants to, which by the way, mine can actually do as well. Some early specimens that were found of the goblin shark, with its jaw in the 2 different positions, were thought to be 2 completely separate species. Goblin sharks have a really distinctive long snooter. There are 2 main theories as to why they might have evolved this. One theory is that they need to dig it into little crevices to get food, or it might be because it's completely covered in the ampullae of Lorenzini, which are these little electrode sensors that a lot of sharks have. They're basically just jelly-filled pores that detect electrical activity. So like when you contract a muscle, you cause an electrical signal, and they can detect that. This is a shark detecting electrical signals. These bitches are super sensitive, and they can sense up to 5/1,000,000ths of a volt. The goblin shark is also only one of 2 species of shark to be known to have pink skin, the other species being the pink lantern shark, because basically they have translucent skin. So shark skin is made of these things called dermal denticles. Dermal denticles are like scales but on steroids. They're made of dentin, which is the same thing that your teeth is made out of, but because of the blood vessels that underlie the translucent dermal denticles that the goblin shark has, their skin has kind of a pinky hue to it. I used to be under the impression that goblin sharks were quite small, but during the research for this video, I found out that they can be up to 12 feet long. So now that's in my nightmares. And the other joint winner for this category is the frilled shark. There was this picture of the frilled shark that went viral for a little bit because people were like, Loch Ness Monster. It's just a creepy picture of the frilled shark. I'm also very confused as how they got this picture. I'm pretty sure it's doctored because the frilled shark normally lives up to depths of about 4,200 feet. So I don't know what it's doing on the surface. The goblin shark is also very deep sea, so it's extremely unlikely that you'll run into either of these, which is another reason why I don't necessarily think they're scary. I just think they're creepy. He's called the frilled shark because him have fancy gills. They've got little pleating around them, which is just so cute. But that's literally the only cute thing about them, because they also have 300 sets of teeth. 300 sets of teeth? 300 teeth. They have 300 teeth. It's a lot of teeth. They also only grow to like 2 meters. One really cool thing about the frilled shark, though, is that they may have the longest gestation period of any animal ever. It's theorized that their gestation period could be up to 42 months. And this is probably just because of their deep sea cold environment, so if you're way down at the bottom where there's no sunlight penetrating, you're in the abyssal zone or the bathypelagic zone or somewhere in one of those really deep zones. I'll put like a little infographic of zones up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. Everything's gonna take a lot longer, because you're not getting as much energy, there's not as much food, there's no sunlight, it's really cold. Anyway, on to the next category. And this final category is for the overall coolest shark. I hope that clap wasn't too loud because my microphone is down here. I've kind of gone a bit off the books with this one because I was like, what is the coolest shark? Now, in my personal opinion, I genuinely do think it's the great white because it's just really fucking cool. But I know that that's a little bit predictable, and I wanted to talk about something that doesn't really get talked about that much. So we're going to be talking about the chimeras, or the chimeriforms to be more specific, which is an order, not a specific species. The chimeriforms are another deep sea group. There's about 50 species of chimeriforms, and they're split into 3 different groups. So you got the long noses, the short noses, and the plow noses. There's a lot of definitions based on noses with these guys. They actually diverged from sharks about 400 million years ago, because they're not technically sharks, but they're still called sharks sometimes, like as their common name, so I'm counting it. Sometimes they're also called ratfish or rabbitfish, just as a collective group, which is also not to be confused with the fact that there is a type of chimeriform called the rabbitfish. Scientists really need to work on their naming. So the chimeriforms are part of the class Chondrichthyes. Chondrichthyes is comprised of both the elasmobranchs, which is the more kind of traditional sharks like the great whites, and then you have the holocephaly, which is what the chimeras are in. Holocephaly means whole head because their jaws are attached to their heads, which in sharks their jaws are not attached to their heads, or fused rather. The chimeriforms can be about 0.5 to 2 meters long, they're pretty small, and they're collectively named the rabbitfish because of their really large eyes and their really large nostrils. Unfortunately, due to some of their life history traits, such as reaching sexual maturity quite late, and also just from living at the bottom of the ocean, a lot of chimeras are considered at risk. By reaching sexual maturity at a later age, it means that if they get killed off when they're younger, they have no opportunity to reproduce. This isn't helped by the fact that they're deep sea animals, and so when you're a deep sea animal, you are at higher risk of being caught up in trawling nets. There are some solutions that have been proposed for issues like this. So instead of having nets that have a really small mesh size so that they can catch a lot younger and a lot smaller animals, by increasing the mesh size you allow more juveniles to be set free, which then gives them an opportunity to reach sexual maturity and reproduce. Another option is the implementation of trapdoors in nets, so you can design a specific trapdoor for a specific species. However, these trapdoors tend to only work for single species, and especially in areas like tropical environments where there's a butt ton of species, these kind of options just aren't really that viable. Generally speaking, speaking, it's not very helpful from a conservationist standpoint to have a single species approach, because as conservationists, you should be focused on an entire ecosystem approach. Things like money and time have to be considered when you're choosing what to conserve. You can prioritize species by looking at things like, is it a keystone species? So is this species' existence going to affect the existence of multiple other species? And if it is, then we should prioritize conserving this species. But in general, having a whole systems approach is what's really going to be helpful. Anyway, went on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, as I said earlier, I'll leave links in the description box to the shark charities that I mentioned earlier. They're doing really great work. You can follow them on Instagram, or you can check out their websites to see what you can do. Sharks are hugely important. We kill approximately 100 million of them every year, either on purpose or just through bycatch. But yeah, I really hope you learned something new about sharks today that you did not know. I hope that you like sharks now if you didn't before. If you're still scared of sharks, I don't really blame you. They are quite spoopy sometimes, but they are really beautiful and they're really important, and I really hope that you love them as much as I do. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up because it's a free way that you can support the channel. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, then click subscribe. But for now, I will leave you with my sharky thoughts. And this is my son, my other son, Baron. His name is Baron von Munchie, and we will say goodbye to you. Goodbye. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, see you later, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.